The very first convention of her broadcast was the one that came first that year, the Republican convention in Cleveland, Ohio. The Republicans renominated incumbent President Calvin Coolidge, and then nothing else happened. I mean, it was historic because it was covered on the radio for the first time, and technologically that was an exciting thing. But even when not much happened at the Republican convention that year, the whole broadcasting for the first time thing really paid off at the Democratic convention, because the Democratic convention that year was nuts. It took the Democrats 103 ballots to get their nominee that year. The Democrats had a huge fight with the Ku Klux Klan at the nominating convention that year, and the Klan won the fight. For the first time in history, a woman's name was put forward for nomination for vice president, and there was an actual bloody fistfight between delegates that was caught live on the radio and broadcast as a play-by-play fight by a man named Norman Brokenshire, who happened to be covering the mic at the moment the fight was breaking out, and he was sitting close enough to it that you could hear it on the radio. He later called it, quote, one of the finest Donnybrooks I'd ever seen. Delegation signs were banged on opponents' heads, chairs and decorations destroyed. I had a ringside seat. I was letting the listening audience in on the fracas. That's that year. Turns out them being divided to the point of beating one another bloody on the convention floor and taking sides both against and for the Klan did not carry the Democrats very far into the general election that year. They got beat to a pulp by Calvin Coolidge. But they are often a concern, and they have been a vexing concern for the planners of this year's convention for the Republican Party.
Has chosen to swim in the same sewage of Donald Trump. That's why his campaign has allowed the liberal use of code words. And these numbers help explain the depth of racial polarization that we're seeing in the Romney campaign. So now time to give him proper credit for being a brutally cold and calculating politician. Because if we're to accept that Mr. Romney does not harbor any racial hatreds that tap into racial stereotypes.
Racial identity politics is now the #1 strategy of the Romney campaign. As the Republican National Convention starts, Mitt Romney's lies to scare old white voters about President Obama are starting to work.
Welfare cheating, food stamp grabbing are all part of the lingo, along with the old calls for law and order and states' rights and all the rest. Say what you want. The message is familiar, deeply redolent of the old demagoguery that stirs up the working white people against the black.
When the world needs to do really big stuff, you need an American. That was the line to the birthers tonight. A dog whistle, whatever you want to call it. It was a bone thrown to the birthers out there that, you know what, I'm really not that far from you.
Mitt Romney said that nobody ever asked me to see my birth certificate. Their response to that when people said, whoa, you're going birther, was, hey, listen, the crowd loved it.
But just keep this in mind. The ultimate tragedy if Mr. Romney wins this race is that America will have elected a man who so crudely embodies the singular belief that the end justifies the means, whatever the cost.
Morning, y'all. I got started right this morning with a biscuit and some cheesy grits.
And the father who was born in Mexico.
Of the part of the population that's entitled to the rights that are guaranteed in those wonderful documents, which enshrine, for example, slavery, which don't allow women to vote.
When we drove down here for spring weekends from Holy Cross up in Massachusetts, we saw the white-only signs all the way down. I thought the one exception to the Republican sort of refusal to look at history and how we've gotten better was Condi Rice.
A little girl grows up in Jim Crow, Birmingham.
So where Little Rock High School had to be integrated at federal gunpoint. I believe that racial division has been this country's great scourge. It won't go away, but it can be narrowed. Let me finish tonight with this. Monday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, Msnbc will air my hour-long documentary, Barack Obama Making History, the significance of us electing our first African-American president. Now we're going to hear from Views. What'd you think of Paul Ryan last night?
I thought he was terrific. I thought he did an excellent job articulating what this election is all about, and that's really what you need to hear.
Okay, let's just speak. That's your word. What do you? And he's going to have to listen to the fact checkers sooner or later. I like it. I mean, I want to hear from a Republican. Any Republicans around here?
You got a great delivery.
I had a great delivery. And your view?
I couldn't watch all of him. He was rather disgusting to me. I had to quit.
Who likes Romney here? Come on forward. Come on. What would?
I think that once you actually get to know him, you can realize that.
Okay, the greatest day of your life was meeting Romney.
Yeah,
woo! Another underprivileged child of America. There will be clever, of course, winsome lines in his speech, no doubt some chuckle-worthy ones about his choice of music on his iPod, all to portray him as a good-hearted square, perhaps a bit out of touch. Plus, Romney's not the first awkward candidate to run for president.
He came across as a slightly awkward guy.
1988. But, you know, the thing about Mitt Romney that's made it really hard for me to watch him is that he has this tick when he's speaking. He kind of moves like a lawn sprinkler. He starts here, and then he goes over to here, and then he goes over.
Your thoughts?
Chris, it's going to be very hard for me, thanks to Joe, to get that lawn sprinkler image out of my head.
He comes off, I'll say it, as robotic, wooden, awkward. I said the other night he looked like he belonged in the Hall of the Presidents.
Right.
One of those statues that's wheeled out.
And tell people about it in a way that makes him not seem like an android anymore.
Chris, I would also...
That's his problem. He's like HAL 2000. He's not human.
I think the cartoon of the Mitt-bot, as he's been lampooned in caricature, really faded away.
I do think he got over the very low bar of saying, okay, I'm a human being, I'm not Beldar Conehead.
But it was slow to take. Look at the, it wasn't a shotgun marriage. Come on. Some of Mitt Romney's attempts to connect with people on the campaign trail have been cringeworthy. Plain speech and toughness, unlike Mitt Romney. I just thought the father overshadowed the son. And there's no amount of fact-checking that stops the Romney campaign from furthering its discredited anti-Obama narrative.
Do you have to go up with counter ads? Do you have to, counter their carpet bombing with your own carpet bombing?
Well, here tonight, Mitt Romney, in his big speech, his barn burner, many believe.
I know the White House does. The White House official said to me once, he kills well. Was raised a ton of money and killed everything that got in his way. And being a killer in politics.
It's politics.
That's so right.
I agree with that. But it's
not a bad attribute.
Okay, so right. I think that's the way you get elected in many local offices. You make sure nobody else is alive. The Republican Party must be pretty desperate for candidates that they would accept somebody who wants.
The Star Wars bar scene cast of characters. In other words.
Well, let's be honest about a couple things. He's got the easiest audience in history tonight. Those people will laugh at the most lame jokes. They'll laugh at the iPod jokes, which isn't funny. They'll laugh at anything. Yep. Tonight, he accepted the nomination of a party which has moved sharply to the right. Thinking about the future, that's what we used to call in the 60s a pig. People that talk like that. How narrow-minded, how small and insular and piggish can you be about this country?
He changes.
I know. I think that's business.
But he becomes the guy who laid you off.
When Ann Romney spoke the other night, she basically said, take it from me, Queen Anne, that the king is a really good guy.
Also, what do Republicans mean when they say they want to restore our country to the founding principle? Isn't it time to get out of the 18th century? Senate candidate Ted Cruz speaking earlier this week in the 21st century, actually.
It's the story of our founding fathers who fought and bled for freedom and then crafted the most miraculous political document ever conceived, our Constitution.
While Cruz and other Republicans are looking back actually to the 18th century and their politicians, Democrats are pushing for more government actions. My notion of America, I hate to give this word to my enemies, is a dialectic. It's a fight back and forth between the Jim Crow people and the know-nothings and all the people that never wanted change and the people that always fought for change. And in the end, liberalism has always won, but it's taken a long fight.
The part of the population that's entitled to the rights that are guaranteed in those wonderful documents, which enshrine, for example, slavery, which don't allow women to vote.
When they hear these applause lines about the founding fathers, don't the women in the room go, wait a minute, we didn't get to vote till after World War I.
I'm telling you, on almost every issue, he wants to go backwards. Sometimes all the way to the last century.
Well, that's a pretty fundamental argument. I think he's joining the fight here, the president. He seems to be open to this very strong philosophical debate about what America stands for. Against people who say this country's getting better. It's getting better for women, for black people, for immigrants, documented or other. It's getting better for gay people. It's getting better because it's becoming a better, bigger society.
And presidents like Dwight Eisenhower and Kennedy and Johnson who use federal executive authority in the states in a way that I'm not quite sure the Constitution necessarily anticipated, but it was right. It was the right thing.
How did you think of Ryan last night?
I want to know when the Democrats are going to define what fair share is, since the top 1% of income earners pay 36.7% of total income tax in this country.
91.
91
top bracket, like
top
it used to be in the old days.
91%.
We can't afford anything if we're not getting any revenue in, right?
91%. I think we heard the end of compassionate conservatism tonight in this.
That united America will care for the poor and the sick, will honor and respect the elderly, and will give a helping hand to those in need.
Nothing. Scratch.
I heard the chirping of crickets, I think.
Gutter ball. Nothing.
No.
Wild pitch.
I was
reaction.
I was in the hall. There was nothing on that one.
And they saw it coming. They were in a rhythmic reaction to everything positive. So they heard compassion coming. Clammed up.
That united America will care for the poor and the sick, will honor and respect the elderly, and will give a helping hand to those in need. That America is the best within each of us. That America we want for our children. If I'm elected President of these United States, I will work with all my energy and soul to restore that America, to lift our eyes to a better future. That future is our destiny. That future is out there. It is waiting for us. Our children deserve it. Our nation depends on it. The peace and freedom of the world require it. And with your help, we will deliver it. Let us begin that future for America tonight. Thank you so very much. May God bless you. May God bless the American people. And may God bless the United States of America.
A two-word phrase that I've given to this speech is optimistic nostalgia.
First of all, the sort of anti-science sentiment that you just mentioned. And even worse, I think, was the sort of smart-alecky nature of the way he said that. Right there, he was doing a parlor snark.
There was stuff at the end that began to be very dark, very jingoistic, very anti-scientific, and really know-nothing. He was talking like the most crazed saber rattler, you know, jingoist. We're going to go to war at every front. We're going to push the Ruskies around. So we're going to go into Iran. It was written by John Bolton or Dan Senor or one of those fellas, one of those real hawks, because, I mean, he really wants to go to war, it seems. Strong, militaristic, jingoistic language about the war. And I think it was bad for the country to just rabble-rouse and saber-rattle. And I think it's bad for the country. So I think on science, on war and peace, on those issues, I personally think this was a bad address for the American people.
Started running for president as severely conservative, and it was precisely that kind of whiplash-inducing ideological transformation that lost Mr. Romney the presidential nomination 4 years ago.
That was almost incomprehensible. He seemed to believe that Mitt Romney's own position is bring the troops home tomorrow morning, which of course it isn't. It's keep them there forever.
'86 movie, the outlaw Josie Wales, who was a nonconformist, would not give up, was a rebel, wanted to keep fighting all the way, and was an outlaw.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, right then, that pairs right, squares right with this saber rattling that Chris was talking about.
I don't know. It's fair. I don't.
Well, it started.
Well, Clint Eastwood is 82 years old, and I think that I don't know if that's what was going on there. That was the weirdest thing I've ever seen at a political convention in my entire life. And it will be the weirdest thing I've ever seen if I live to be 100. Because I worried that my blood sugar had dropped so low that I had passed out and something was happening in my brain that had generated this thing that couldn't possibly be real in the last hour of a Republican convention nominating somebody. Like this.
You don't treat him on another night. They did not think he would get up there and erode in front of the whole world like he did, and it was embarrassing. And the question is whether or not they did it in some desperate attempt to get started.
I thought that Clint Eastwood was bizarre, and I thought it was demeaning to the presidency.
Everybody loved him. He's sort of old and folksy, and he's an iconic figure in American life.
From a script, Clint Eastwood was a disaster.
Put out a statement about the Clint Eastwood debacle.
Let's hear it. Here's what President Obama, by the way, tweeted tonight. I didn't know presidents tweeted. It's a picture of him sitting in the president's chair, and he says, "This seat's taken." Okay, I don't know whether that does the job or not. What do you think, Megan?
Ouch.
He didn't seem like the guy who put a dog on top of the car. There's no question about that. That might be gone now. But
they should have done more dog stuff. They should have done more dog stuff. They should have done more dog stuff.
This is hardball. Play some politics. Play some politics. Play some politics.